there. You're Marcus, you're welcome to stick around as long as you want. You can stick around for half hour, an hour, 2 hours, whatever works for you there. I know you're a big Southern California fan there with USC football too, so we can bring everything together here eventually.
Yeah, that's a struggle. That's a struggle.
That's all right. Travis there, he's a big Vandy fan there, so I think he knows about struggling.
Yeah, every year. So I mean, I went to Purdue, so that's not really better. I've got family ties with Auburn, so that kind of makes it okay. But 2 out of 3, I'm crying.
Oh, we got a big matchup coming up then. LSU Auburn's coming up.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm actually after that. Even if they do get crushed by Burrow and crew, I've got a lot to look forward to. Going to the Auburn and Ole Miss game, so should be a good time.
All right, well, here we go, guys. Welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 9. With me today, as always, is Calvin and Hobby. We got 2 special guests with us this week, Marcus Grant and Travis May. Marcus, you want to say hi to everyone here?
Hey, everybody. Appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to it.
Travis?
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on as well. Marcus, it's nice to meet you.
You as well, Travis?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been on a podcast with you before. Maybe some of your friends, but never met you on a podcast. So good to see you, and good to talk some college football even before the show. Look forward to the rest of it.
See, I'm not allowed to say a whole lot. As an Alabama Crimson Tide fan, we've been spoiled for years. So I take that opposite Alabama approach. I just kind of sit back because Alabama fans can be assholes. You know what I mean? They're like let's call it the way it is. They're like the Patriots of college football. You know what? No one likes a Bama fan. No one does. So I just kind of sit back and just kind of watch everything as it unfolds. So
yeah, my favorite thing is the Bama fan that always quotes with the Sabanisms. Like he's got like 4 or 5 just Nick Saban quotes waiting just in every social situation. Just he's got to insert that right there into every conversation. Got a couple buddies like that, and they're pretty hilarious with it.
Well, and speaking of Bama and the Patriots there, I had a good kick. I see one of those little things that come up and says Tom Brady's job might be in trouble because they're bringing in Mohamed Sanu, who's got like a 158.3 passer rating in his career right now. So we want to talk news and notes here a little bit, and there's some wide receivers moving around here. Mohamed Sanu to the Patriots. I don't like the price they paid. A second round seems a little steep for a 30-year-old wide receiver there. But Sanu automatically becomes that number 2 right now behind Edelman. What do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the price, it's someone, and I'm sorry that I don't remember who it was, made the point, though, that the Patriots are sort of hamstrung with the salary cap, and I think the Falcons are having to kind of kick in for this, so that was probably what upped the price in terms of the draft pick that they had to give up. But look, the Patriots, they have some holes at the wide receiver spot. We know that Edelman is going to be fine. Josh Gordon's still trying to get healthy right now. And, they're trying to figure out what happens with like guys like N'Keal Harry, Philip Dorsett. So adding Mo Sanu really adds something to it. By the way, you mentioned Sanu as a quarterback. They also have Julian Edelman, who's a former quarterback. So they could technically run a 3-quarterback offense out there if they wanted to.
And that wouldn't surprise me with Bill Belichick. He'll go to any kind of style offense just to show people he knows more than everyone else, right? So,
yeah, he did that with the punt and the purposely taking the penalty and all that this past week, and just the smirk was just hilarious.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
That was your typical Belichick troll job right there for everybody.
Be curious what you guys think about the fit for Sanu in New England as well. I was starting to really like Jacoby Myers. I thought he was really kind of jumping off the page a little bit from a dynasty standpoint. He did good in the preseason, looked good the other day. But it seemed like Sanu probably means that he's going to take a little bit of a back seat. Maybe it means Josh Gordon's injury is worse than we think. But curious what you guys think about the fit for Sanu with Brady in New England.
Sure. So I thought Myers actually plays similarly to Sanu. So I thought it was an interesting move that they're going with a player like that, like Sanu, that kind of fits into the same role I think that Myers could. One day, maybe that's the idea, that Sanu actually helps him develop. If you are a believer in Jacoby Myers, I'm all about just kind of taking advantage of this and saying, hey, this is kind of buy low moment for Dynasty, and if for redraft, it's probably over. But that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Well, and I think what we saw last night sort of suggests that they're still not 100% sold on Myers. I mean, the fact that look, they were late in that game, they had well in hand, but not only were they still throwing, they still had Myers running a lot of routes, and they were still getting him a lot of targets. And I think that sort of suggests that they're still trying to get him up to speed in this whole thing, and maybe that was part of the impetus for trade. Because look, even if they didn't trade for Sanu, there was talk that they were in on Emmanuel Sanders, so you just got the sense that they were trying to find somebody to fill out that wide receiver group.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And speaking of Emmanuel Sanders there, what about that fit with the 49ers? Now, in my opinion, he automatically becomes their number one wide receiver, and I don't know if that's saying a whole heck of a lot there, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, he does. He walks in. I mean, he already has more catches than any of the other 49ers wide receivers. He'd be second to George Kittle in receptions on that team. And I know that everybody's immediate response is, well, this is still a run-heavy offense, and Kyle Shanahan's not going to suddenly open it up. And I do agree, but I think the fact that they went out and added Sanders suggests that they realize that for as well as they're running the football, they have to have a more competent passing attack if they're going to get through this season. And so I think that, Sanders is going to get plenty of work. I think he's going to see plenty of targets, and you're right. He's their number one wide receiver. So I don't know that, his fantasy value definitely doesn't take a hit, but I can envision a scenario where he even sees a few more targets than he was in Denver.
Yeah, he's clearly the wide receiver one for them this year. What I was trying to think of is he the best wide receiver on the 49ers since Jimmy Garoppolo took the job over? And if there actually might be more opportunities than we think, because a guy as reliable as Emmanuel Sanders that has proven the ability to handle a high target workload, make the catches that he needs to. I'm not sure Jimmy has ever really had that. We look at his weapons this year, certainly has not. So it could mean really good things for the passing game. And that might go up more than it has this year so far.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get somebody who's had a 100 catch season added to that level of experience, I know that one season he did have Peyton Manning throwing him the ball, but obviously that type of veteran is always a good add. And I think I agree, he does immediately slide in to be the one. And if they do throw a little bit more or rely on Sanders to be kind of like the market share leader on the team, rather than just kind of floating it around and messing around with the targets outside of just George Kittle, I think that's a really great situation for Sanders to kind of be almost in a league-winning potential type situation down the stretch.
Well, he goes from a team that was struggling from the get-go to a team that's going to be a playoff bound with a solid defense. And I think he steps into it, more importantly for the 49ers, that mentorship role for those young receivers they have there, Pettis, Deebo Samuel, Jalen Hurd. They can actually learn from a vet, and I think that's going to help the 49ers going forward, even beyond the season when Sanders – I don't know if Sanders is going to stick around or not, but I think his value is as a mentor going forward this year. Plus, he's not going to hurt. Now, the one thing I'm worried about a little bit is I'm actually surprised more than anything how he's came back from his injury. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we need to kind of monitor going forward as the season goes on? Like, I'm not too sure because it was a pretty significant injury. And he came back and he's been playing well coming back from that injury. But will fatigue or something kind of set in by week 10, 11, 12? I'm no doctor, but that's got to play a factor somewhere down the road, I would think.
Maybe. But I feel like we crossed that bridge when we come to it. I mean, I think we were all surprised. At least I was surprised at how well he rebounded. I mean, when we saw him in the preseason and he was lights out during the preseason, I think that said a lot about his recovery there. So I think right now, look, I say you're injury prone until you're not, right? But as long as he's healthy and he's on the field and he's productive, then you just roll with it. And if something happens, then you make your contingency plans.
Speaking of contingency plans there, what are the Detroit Lions going to do with news of Kerryon Johnson going to the IR?
Well, I mean, it looks like it's probably going to be Ty Johnson and J.D. McKissic in some kind of committee. I feel like they've already I think they already kind of said something to the tune of there's going to be some kind of running back committee situation. I know that there was a lot of people, even on Twitter today, wanting Kenyon Drake, who had kind of requested, or at least they made it known that he was being shopped around. He might be an option there. But Ty Johnson was actually a really efficient runner, even dating back to college at Maryland. Averaged like, I think, 8, almost 9 yards per carry one season for Maryland. So I would love to see him get more run. He's never been much of a pass catcher, was never really asked to do that in college. So I'd love to see him kind of be the lead, that 1A type role, absolute priority on waivers. But deeper leagues, he might already be rostered off of just what he's been able to do in limited sample so far. But I'm excited to see what he does now with that opportunity down the stretch, given that Kerryon can't even be back on the team or be back with the team till week 16 now at the earliest.
Is this something where we can see? Go ahead, Marcus.
I was going to say, somebody who drafted Kerryon in a whole bunch of places. I've been going through and trying to add Ty Johnson. I will say this. I don't know that I'd spend a ton of, if you're in a fab budget league, I don't know that I'd spend a whole lot of it, just because of, as Travis was saying, it's going to be a committee. So I don't know that Ty Johnson's going to get the same sort of workhorse load that Kerryon was getting there. So I would sort of be judicious with how much you're spending in fab on Ty Johnson.
Well, so Travis, let me ask you this, because you mentioned that about him not doing a lot in the receiving game in college. But one of the things I've been frustrated with Kerryon Johnson about is he hasn't been as involved in the passing game as I would love to see him be. And Ty Johnson went out and got 4 targets and caught all 4 of them. Is that just not typically going to be a part of his game?
I think it's one of those situations where he didn't in college, but that didn't necessarily mean that he can't. I think that it's all about the opportunity and the pros. And I think anybody when funneled a few targets with a low ADOT can make a snag here and there out in the flat, out in just kind of an outlet type route situation. I don't think you want him lining up in a Tariq Cohen role or a Le'Veon Bell type situation, running a bunch of wide receiver routes. But I think he can get it done as a receiver, has done so in a small sample. But I mean, in college, he didn't even have 30 receptions in 4 full seasons in college. So I wouldn't expect him to be the focal point as a receiver out of the backfield.
I don't expect the Lions to go out and make a trade for like a Kenyon Drake, but could we see a resurgence of, like, say, CJ Anderson coming back to Detroit, or another veteran back coming in to help fill out that backfield?
That's a good question. I mean, look, the Cardinals just went out and got Alfred Morris. They were working out Jay Ajayi and Spencer Ware. I mean, there are plenty of guys on the street that are looking for opportunity. Maybe they do bring back CJ Anderson. I mean, look, Zach Zinner could come back. He was just released by the Saints after spending a week there. So Zach Zinner could end up back in Detroit. I do think they're going to do something to add a little bit of depth, because I can't imagine they're going to try and survive the rest of the season with just those 2 backs.
No, I definitely. If I was CJ Anderson, though, I don't know if I would want to come back after how they kind of let him go. Like, he was in the middle of like some kind of charity event. He's like speaking, and he goes off stage, and he's like, "Hey, by the way," gets a phone call, and he's gone. It's
no.
So I don't know if I would want to come back if I'm CJA, but I'd like to see Jay Ajayi get one last chance. I mean, his knees never did him any favors, but it'd be cool to kind of see him get plugged in and get one more season of run.
That's fair enough. I liked Jay Ajayi there last Philly there. He had he had 2 good weeks, I guess is the best way to put it there, where he was hitting over 200 yards in those 2 games. It kind of gave fantasy owners that little bit of a buy or sell window, I guess is probably the best way to put it, where if you sold him during those 2 weeks, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But speaking of sell, I think that sell window for Teddy Bridgewater, especially in 2 QB leagues, is now starting to close as news of Brees eyeing week 8 return. Is that something we can expect Drew Brees back this week?
I mean, I think he definitely wants to come back this week. If I'm the Saints, but they have a bye in week 9, right? I mean, I would think maybe if they could hold him off for a week, give him 1 more week to rest or whatever, and just buy that time. But look, I know he's chomping at the bit to get back in there, which makes Bridgewater kind of a questionable start in a lot of leagues this week. Look, they're winning without him. I don't know why they would rush him back, especially against the Cardinals, who I feel like they could beat with Bridgewater at quarterback. But look, how do you tell a guy like Drew Brees to sit down when he wants to play?
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, but I'm always rooting for more games with Drew Brees. I mean, I went to Purdue, always for my Boilermakers. I wanted to get one more Super Bowls, but to kind of make sure that he gets that Super Bowl, I think they want to also make sure that he's healthy. So I was going to say the exact same thing. Just I think wait to the bye and then plug him back in. That's probably most likely situation.
I had a boss take me. So I live in New Orleans right now. I had a boss that took me to a Purdue game. He was a Purdue alum as well. And I thought Drew Brees was a big deal here. He is a huge deal in Lafayette, Indiana, like way bigger than he even is here.
Oh yeah, he is the best ever.
I was a USC student, USC alum, and I think maybe it was my senior year. Drew Brees made his first college start at the Coliseum against SC on a day that was just ridiculously hot in like late August, early September. We certainly didn't know who he was, but he came on there, and even though the Trojans won, Brees lit them up. And I remember my roommate and I sitting in the stands being like, who is this dude? There's no doubt he's going to win a Heisman before he's done. I mean, he didn't, but obviously his career certainly has validated, how good he was that day at the Coliseum and just how good he was throughout his career.
Absolutely.
So if I could just drop a couple of quick things about, I liked Teddy Bridgewater before he was a Saint. I certainly fully love and endorse him now. There were a couple of weeks where people were completely talking about him like he was the worst quarterback in football. So if this is really it for him, just want to say in the 5 games he started, he completed nearly 70% of his passes, 1,205 yards, an average of 241 a game, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. One of those bounced off of Ted Ginn's hands, by the way. Completely not his fault. 2 of those matchups were against top 6 defenses too. So, I mean, he drew a very tough part of the schedule and could not have asked for more of him. And he turned in a really good performance in those 5 games that he started too. And if this is going to be it for Drew Brees, if this is going to be, let's just say they'll go to the Super Bowl and he'll ride off into the sunset there, hopefully. If Teddy Bridgewater is under center next year with the Saints, he really could have a lot of value.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, look, let's not forget that year that he, destroyed his knee, and had to sit out. I mean, a lot of us had predicted that was going to be his big breakout year. I mean, he finished the previous year strong. It looked like everything was setting up for him. I mean, I was excited to watch him that year. Then obviously has that horrible knee injury. But it just looked like he was really on track to really have that breakout season. It's been delayed a little bit, but who knows? I mean, if Brees does leave, he walks into an offense. I mean, you still got Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. You've got pieces there to go in and be successful. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, if we just look at the small sample size, I mean, in the 5 complete games he's been a quarterback 1 twice, quarterback 2 twice, only had 1 downish game. So that's a huge showing from somebody who came back from one of the most gruesome injuries you'll see in all of football. So I'm definitely buying it into his future, and not only am I buying, it's just he's just a fun guy to root for. Just his reaction after winning even just his first game this year, and the post game speech, just easy guy to root for, easy guy to want on your fantasy team. Even pay a little premium for him just because he's so fun to root for.
But you know what? With Teddy Bridgewater, there's one thing he doesn't do. He doesn't see ghosts out there.
Apparently not.
First off, NFL films or whatever. Oh man, that's gotta be like the worst possible time to catch a quarterback in frustration there. Just kind of probably not what you want to be saying and getting it recorded and whatnot. But I ran into last night. I was in a matchup and I was down a few points, to say the least. I had the Jets defense going because I was either the Jets or the Eagles were the only 2 defenses I had. And I was like, oh man, I'm done. He's got Sam Darnold playing. There's no way I'm winning this matchup. And I ended up winning the matchup because Sam Darnold was it 4 picks, 1 fumble lost. I'm like, and I'm watching this. I'm like checking my phone. I'm like, okay, there's -3. There's another -3. There's a -3. Found myself down like 10 points and ended up winning by 2. I was like, whoa, there's your Monday. There's your Monday miracle right there, courtesy of Sam Darnold. Can the Jets recover from this? Is Darnold still is he still a quarterback there? Obviously, he is for this year, but what do they do with him now?
Yeah, I mean, look, and maybe this is my SC homerism coming in there. Like, I don't think it's time to pull the plug on Sam Darnold yet. I mean, first off, I feel like this whole ghost thing is much ado about nothing. I feel like everybody watching that game knew that Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts, right? I mean, it didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a major revelation that we just happened to hear it out loud. Also, if I'm Adam Gase, I got bigger problems right now than ESPN airing some sideline audio of my quarterback who was a little bit spooked that day. Darnold has plenty of ability. I think they're building something good around him. I don't know that Adam Gase is the answer. We've seen Gase in how many stops now, and he really has shown nothing as a head coach. So that might be part of the issue right there. But I think there's just too much there with Darnold in this offense to just give up on it right now. Also, the fact that last night they played a defense that literally has been world beaters all year. I think I saw something earlier that says like if the Patriots offense never stepped on the field this year, the team would still be 3-3-1 because of how good their defense has been. So that says something.
Wow.
Yeah, and Darnold, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Well, he wasn't getting any help last night either. Robbie Anderson, he lost that ball in the light, so to speak, and that was an easy touchdown, I think, for Robbie Anderson. If he would have been able to track that ball, that's an easy touchdown there. Le'Veon Bell is probably about the only valuable Jets player that even came out to that game. I don't know if that comes back to Gase and his coaching, because that team did not look like it was ready to step on the field with the Patriots in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Travis.
No, they were just in complete disarray as a whole team. And anytime that happens, I know this good and well. Anytime that happens, as a Titans fan, the blame always goes on the quarterback, regardless of the other factors going on around him. So Darnold, I mean, and you know this, Marcus. I mean, he's just a gunslinger. He believes in himself. He believes in his arm. And even dating back to USC, he was just always looking to make the big play. And sometimes that resulted in some interceptions. Like in basically a season and a half of college action, he had about 22 picks. He had almost 60 touchdowns, but he also had the picks that came with it. So I think as he cleans that up a little bit, even if he has some picks with it, he's going to make some amazing plays. So I don't think it's time to blow it up just yet.
This is their week 9 to 14 schedule. Miami, New York Giants, Washington Redskins, Oakland Raiders, Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins again. They're going to be fine. The Patriots were a very difficult matchup. We knew that going in. I said it on the podcast last week to go ahead and start getting your offers in on New York Jets players. It looked bad. It looked real bad. But I'm still saying a schedule like that, they're going to get right. They're going to look good. Don't forget how he looked just the week before against Dallas, who made Carson Wentz look bad at times as well. So a good game, a bad game. He's a young player. It's going to happen. He's got a lot of get-right games in a row. And I think Robbie Anderson, Crowder, Herndon, Bell, Darnold, those are the kind of players. Doesn't look like it right now, but they're going to help you get to the fantasy playoffs.
Well, I don't want to quite go to fantasy playoffs here quite yet, but I want to do a little trick-or-treating here tonight. And one of the guys I want to ask about, because of that schedule, is Sam Darnold. Is he a trick or is he a treat in the trade deadline? Is he a guy you're looking to target for that stretch down the back end here?
I mean, the schedule is really nice, but I think, I don't know that I would give up any assets to try to acquire Sam Darnold at this point. If he's out there on the waiver wire, I like him as a streamer. I don't know that I'm, you'd have to package something really nice in the deal to get me to kind of take Sam Darnold in a trade right now.
What about 2 QB leagues?
Mm-hmm. 2 QB leagues, sure. Yeah, definitely 2 QB leagues.
Yeah, especially, and I don't know how many of your listeners play in 12 and 14 team leagues, but when you get in that, I mean, every starting quarterback with a pulse has some major value there. So I think looking down their schedule, they actually have they have the easiest schedule of all 32 NFL teams for quarterbacks down the stretch, and it's not particularly close. If you using a couple of the RotoViz tools that we have, I mean, there's a couple other decent teams with good matchups down the stretch. I mean, you've got Buffalo and Pittsburgh with easy matchups, but besides that, it's Sam Darnold. He's got the easiest schedule by far, especially in primetime playoff mode, with the exception of Week 16, which is championship. But you're probably not going to want to count on that type of player in the championship. You're probably going to want to be streaming him or having him as your QB2 at best, at most rather, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure what his value is right now in a trade, but this year especially, it does seem like he's going to be a prime bounce back candidate.
Yeah, streamable in a 1 quarterback league for sure. In some of these better matchups, 2 QB league, I'm in. I want him.
Okay, let's move our focus here to Cincinnati's wide receivers. Are there any tricks or any trading you want to do here with AJ Green possibly coming back, Tyler Boyd, and even Alex Erickson here the last week with anyone there that you're looking to trade for?
Can we throw Auden Tate into the mix? I've become kind of an Auden Tate stan in the last few weeks. Big wide receiver, great catch radius. Starting to see more opportunity there in that offense. He's the guy that I've kind of picked up on waiver wires where I could around there, and he's the guy that I sort of have my eye on going forward in that offense.
Yeah, that's definitely somebody I'm interested in. Somebody that pre-draft process, I think a lot of people on Twitter who are super high on Tate just because the size and the contested catches, and he made a few good catches in big games in college. But it's funny, he only caught like 60 something balls in his entire college career, just because of how things went and like redshirting and all that. But definitely always an upside play with that huge size. And so I think he's definitely somebody that could bounce back, because if you look at his, what his workload should be getting him right now, he's actually kind of underperforming, like below expectation. So if he sees an uptick, he's like 34th in targets right now, I think, around 40, mid 40s and in receptions, around 40th in receiving yards in the league. So he's already teetering on the flex value range. If he gets some extra touchdowns somewhere, and I've seen a couple of catches where he kind of fell just shy of the end zone. If he gets some scores with that massive size, I think we see somebody that could win you a few games down the stretch here.
Yeah, obviously we want quality, but if you're not going to have quality in the case of Andy Dalton, at least have quantity. And right now he's got the most attempts in the league, which is really good. And he's top 5 in completions at least. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity. There's going to be a lot of targets. I think the addition of AJ Green is going to help some of these guys. Maybe not the Alex Ericksons of the world, but like last year, Tyler Boyd was actually better with AJ Green in the lineup than he was without him. I think Auden Tate, he looks like to me, and he's running some out of the slot. Tyler Boyd is kind of dominating those snaps right now, but he looks like almost like a tight end when I watch him, like almost like he's taking Tyler Eifert's place instead of AJ Green. And so with AJ Green back, that really could potentially open some things up. Andy Dalton's going to have to perform, but as long as they're running as many snaps as they are right now, Zach Taylor seems to like to want to hurry it up a little bit. They're going to be down. They're going to be throwing the ball. A lot of these guys that are being left for dead right now in the passing game, Tyler Boyd got 14 targets. He didn't convert a lot of them because Andy Dalton didn't give you a whole lot of quality, but that's still the kind of opportunity that I want to see out of a guy that, he could easily be a wide receiver 2 the rest of the way, as long as he converts more of those targets.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Auden Tate looking like a tight end, because he is like 6'5", like 230-ish, and he did run like a 4.7 or so, like when in the pre-draft process. So that's kind of what killed his stock, because we thought he could probably run like a mid 4.5, like just get down to 4.6, man, and he didn't do it. So he does kind of run as fast as a tight end, but when you win contested situations like he does, you don't always have to rely on that speed.
What about moving to the running backs here? What about guys like Chase Edmonds, Sony Michel, Ty Johnson? Are any of these guys someone you're trading for down the stretch?
Sony Michel? That wasn't a pretty – he'll get in the end zone sometimes, but if he doesn't, that's rough. So I'm not sure I'm going out. I don't know about you, Marcus, but I'm not really looking to necessarily buy Michel.
You know what? I have talked myself into thinking that like later in the season becomes his time. Now, a lot of that is contingent on Rex Burkhead and his health. But once the weather starts getting cold and getting nasty there in Foxborough, I think you start to see them run the football a little bit more. I mean, last year they were a very run-heavy team there in New England, and they, Tom Brady made plays when he needed to, but they didn't have to rely on his arm. And so, I know that you are sort of hoping for that touchdown upside, but I just think that as this season goes on, maybe they start to lean on that run game a little bit more.
What about
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mohamed Sanu is actually a pretty good run blocker as well, and so that they could be building a team that at the very end of the season could be built for that. I can see that. My biggest concern on Michelle is he, even with scoring 3 TDs, he still saw less than 40% of the snaps this week, and that's kind of been a problem for him. Like you said, if he's not getting the TDs, he's really not worth a lot, but he does have that role, so it's really kind of a conundrum. I'm not sure I'm buying or selling. If I've got him on my team, I'm probably holding and just hoping that what Marcus said is true.
What are we making out of this Chase Edmonds, David Johnson thing in Arizona?
I think Alfred Morris signing suggests that David Johnson is hurt more than they're letting on down there. But even then, I like Chase Edmonds to have some standalone value. I mean, when he's gotten the touches, admittedly limited amount of touches, I think he's done pretty well with them. I know last week was obviously a blow-up game for him, but in those last 3 games, I think he's averaging something like 6.5 yards per touch, which that's pretty nice. So, even with David Johnson back, I can see a scenario where they line DJ up in the slot occasionally, have Chase Edmonds in the backfield. So I think there's an opportunity for both those guys to get on the field at the same time in Arizona.
Yeah, I'd say so. And it really is a shame because you want to see somebody like DJ just stay healthy because he's had such weird injuries and now to miss more time and just have to watch somebody else just go off. I mean, I'm sure he's a team player, but you want to be the guy making the play. So it really kind of hurts just seeing somebody go off. But Edmonds has always kind of flashed when he's been given some opportunity. So good for him. But yeah, I'm really kind of fading DJ. And even in Dynasty, it's really hard to gauge what his future looks like, especially if Edmonds shows to have some kind of success down this stretch. So I'm not really looking to sell DJ because that's absolutely the wrong moment to sell. But I'm not necessarily going out to try to buy Edmonds like I would like an Eckler in that Melvin Gordon situation there. That's not quite on par with that.
Yeah, it's kind of big signals from Arizona, right? Because they went out and signed Alfred Morris, but DJ was active for the game this week. It's kind of a weird situation. I love Edmonds. Don't start either one of them this week. I think it's the same.
The Cardinals Twitter will just, they'll troll you anyway.
Well, they'll probably tell you about something about sitting Edmonds this week or something like that, and David Johnson will go off or something, and they'll switch it up.
That is our luck. Hey, fellas, I got to bail, but it's been fun chatting with you. I appreciate you guys giving me the invite here.
Thanks,
Marcus. Anytime you want to swing by, just let me know. We'll have you on. No doubt.
Sounds good.
Have a good one, man.
That was good. We got through most of the trick-or-treating here, and just kind of works out good because I want to go into the 2019 running back class here. Is there anyone you're trading, with the exception, obviously everyone's Josh Jacobs. There's no doubt about that. He's clearly separated himself from the rest of the class. Is there anyone you're trying to trade for right now? Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, anyone else you're kind of looking at?
Yeah, I think Miles Sanders is still the guy that I'm going to be trading for. He was somebody that I really believed in the pre-draft process and was really high on him. Landing on the Eagles, I was a little bit worried about the opportunity, as were many other people. I think that they were thinking, the Eagles haven't exactly had a feature back here recently. And they, again, don't have a feature back right now. And for some reason, they're giving Jordan Howard carries still. He's had a few good plays. He can rake out, give you the tough yardage or whatever, but he really doesn't give you much. So I think eventually Miles Sanders is going to take over. He's already the much far superior receiver between the two. And so I think that's what gives me some hope in his future. And he is performing below expectation in terms of fantasy points per game. I mean, if you look at the number of targets he's getting, the number of opportunities he's getting, and the receiving yards are okay. He's had a couple of bigger plays, but I think that he's in for some positive regression with his opportunities that he's already had. And if he does see any increase in that opportunity, I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised with Miles Sanders down the stretch.
Well, the one thing I like about Miles Sanders is whenever the Eagles are looking for that big play, since Deshaun Jackson's been out of their lineup, it's been Miles Sanders giving them that big play. I think he's the only one to be over 40 yards on any single play so far through the 7 weeks here right now. I could be wrong, but I think he holds like the 4 or 5 biggest plays from scrimmage for the Eagles this season.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he was their leading receiver, if not still the leading receiver. So he's definitely a weapon. I think they're going to find more and more ways to use him pretty soon, sooner than later. So I'm excited to see what he could be. I'm not really a believer in much of the other running backs in this class. Maybe David Montgomery, if the Bears can figure out how to actually have an NFL offense. And maybe I guess Pollard's interesting if Zeke gets hurt, but he's just not going to have enough touches to make him interesting on a week-to-week basis. Outside of that, I mean, there are a couple other guys I like. I don't like Justice Hill, but we're going to have to see Mark Ingram leave before he's incredibly useful. Alexander Madison, I guess, is a nice handcuff to Dalvin Cook, but not somebody I'm trying to go out and buy right now either.
That's interesting you mentioned that about Alexander Madison, because I think he's probably the backup right now with the biggest upside, biggest injury upside at least. And yeah, I think he's probably a guy that I'd be willing to buy him. Honestly, nobody else in the 2019 running back draft class am I making a target right now? A lot of that has to do with two things. One, I have a theory that every year we talk ourselves into running backs that pre-draft we didn't really believe that much in, but then we talk ourselves into them via situation. I think we did that with Penny and Ronald Jones the year before even, and then I think we've done that with some of these guys this year. But you mentioned Miles Sanders, and I think what could be really interesting for him is, if you remember, right before cut down day, before the season started, there was some Jordan Howard to the Chiefs buzz. What about Jordan Howard to the Lions? And if that were to happen, that could really make things interesting for Sanders.
That would be amazing, because Sanders deserves more opportunity. But I don't think that, unless the Eagles start losing a bunch of games, I don't think that they'll make a move like that right now. But that would be a blast, just to see him get the real opportunity that he deserves, because I think he is. I mean, he's got feature back athleticism. He's got the receiving skills. He didn't have a huge sample size of it in college, because Penn State just didn't ask their backs to do that much, outside of basically Saquon Barkley. So I really hope that he just sees an uptick in opportunity, because he will succeed when given that opportunity.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that he wasn't given that opportunity at Penn State. The Penn State didn't ask that of the running backs. And one of the things you ended up suckering me into this year is college fantasy football.
Yeah, man. And I got you.
One of the things I learned, so I kind of diddled in it last year a little bit. And one of the first things I learned after I stacked my team with 2019 draft prospects is that theory does not work when it comes to college fantasy football. Stacking your team with studs does not work. And I think we're seeing that right now between you and Lucas. You and Lucas are killing me in the one league, and I think I finally put together a couple of wins in a row. But
yeah, that league's a lot of fun. There's like 17 mats in that league. I don't even know how many mats there are, actually. We've changed the chat to the CFF Mat League. So I every single week I'm basically playing somebody named Matt, except for like maybe 2 times this season. But yeah, beating Lucas this past week was great. And so I'll tell him to listen to the show. I was like, yeah, hey, gave you a shout out this week. And he'll be like, oh, come on. But no, it's been a blast. But yeah, Miles Sanders, I mean, that was just a low overall passing volume offense, I guess, last year. Sean Clifford this year has been a little bit fun for them. But yeah, Sanders, I think he profiles as a feature. I just wanted to be used like a feature.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of us want to see. Like, I know when I took him in redraft in a couple leagues, hoping he would be the guy. I didn't expect him to be the guy right away because Jordan Howard was there, and you got to bring the rookie in a little bit slowly, and most of these coaches do that. But where I saw his value was in that passing game. I thought, okay, I look at the Eagles wide receivers, and obviously Nelson Aguilar is not a guy you're hoping to catch a baby out of burning building with.
Oh, no.
I got to take that low-hanging fruit there every once in a while.
Yeah. I mean, he proved it again this past week. He was like, no, it's close. I don't want to get my I just did my nails,
Yeah, I don't want to get Shane started on this again, because you watch Amari Cooper go up there and lay out for this ball on the sidelines, and then you watch Aguilar kind of,
I could go for that.
I don't really like turf burn or whatever the excuse was. And
yeah,
it was just
not a good look.
No, it was not. And Arcega-Whiteside, we haven't seen him do a whole lot this year. He's another one of those receivers that I looked at as an Auden Tate type guy, a big body, red zone target, except he's got a little bit more speed than Auden Tate had, but you haven't seen him do anything. Deshaun Jackson's obviously been banged up, and Alshon Jeffrey, in my opinion, is who he is. We know, like Marcus said earlier, you're either hurt, you're not hurt. You know what I mean? You're either injury prone until you're injury prone, or you're not injury prone until you get hurt. Or Alshon Jeffrey is always one of those guys you're waiting for that other wheel to fall off, because it's just a matter of time before it seems he gets injured, which means Miles Sanders may not be the RB1 on the team, but he's definitely the wide receiver 1 on this team.
Yeah, already.
The problem in Philadelphia is the same that it was last year, and it's not a problem for the team. It's a problem for us in fantasy. They spread their targets way out. And like, you may have Dallas Goedert. He might have 8 targets one week, and he might have 4 targets the next. Everybody except for Jeffrey, the fluctuation has just been insane. And that was true last year, except really it was Zach Ertz that was a little bit more consistent last year.
Dallas, I love you brought up Dallas Goedert there, because he's a guy I loved watching out of college. I had him as one of my top tight ends coming out. I think we're seeing – oh, man, this is probably going to get my ass kicked on this one. I think we're seeing Dallas Goedert start to take more and more of that Zach Ertz role away right now. And I could see the Eagles transitioning to Dallas Goedert maybe as soon as next year is a possibility. Travis, how do you feel about that?
That would be interesting. I think he saw maybe 1 week. I can't remember which week it was, but he saw a spike in snaps. I want to say it was week 3 or 4, and we thought, oh wow, this could be the Dallas Goedert breakout. Maybe they're going to start really getting him more involved, and maybe they're going to start running more 12 personnel. But really, that's just not been the case for whatever reason with the Eagles really making that transition. And I think that's just because Zach Ertz is just still Mr. Reliable. He's not, he's not being funneled targets to the same crazy level. He is still seeing quite a few targets. I want to say he's actually top 2, if not leading in targets at the tight end position right now. He's way up there. He's actually number 1 in targets right now at the tight end position. So it's not like he's going away anytime soon. Dallas Goedert, meanwhile, I think he's 23rd in targets. So we're still probably a ways off, especially just because Ertz still has quite a while on his contract. He's got like an out in his contract, I think, in 2021. So that might be the cutoff, but that's a long time to wait for Goedert to really take over.
Yeah, some of that's buoyed by Zach Ertz had 16 targets in week 2, so that obviously helps. He hasn't had double digits in any other week, but yeah, so far Goddard still hasn't out targeted him at any point this season. I don't know that we're seeing a change of the guard yet. Zach Ertz is still really good, but I think there is hope that Goddard continues to be as involved in the red zone as he has been in the past, and I think that could make him a fairly decent tight end option for us. Maybe not with the ceiling that he would have if he was the only guy, but he got hurt at the beginning of this season. The last few weeks, I think he's turned in some of his best performances, and I think that coincides with him finally being fully healthy. So definitely a lot of good things to watch for him in the next few weeks for sure.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone else out there right now that you're like, you know what? I'm in a good position in my fantasy league right now. I'm sitting at 4-2, 5-1, whatever your record is right now. Is there anyone there that you're kind of looking at as a target that you want to acquire for your playoff push?
Oh man, out of any kind of position, or just like a specific position, or just like anything.
No, anything, any guy you're kind of target. I know one of the guys I'm looking at is
Sure.
James Conner, just because I know they've kind of got using Benny Snell a little bit more, but that schedule for me, depending on the price, obviously I'll trade for anyone and I'll trade anyone depending on the price going back and forth. But that schedule is something I'm really interested in. And Robbie Anderson, I think after last week's egg that he just laid in New England, is a guy I want to target too in that Jets offense. So those are the kind of guys I'm looking at down the stretch to get me to that championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're looking at, like wide receivers, guys that have to see some kind of bounce back. I think you're looking at Robert Woods has had some crazy opportunity this year, and we don't even realize it. In terms of targets, Curtis and I talked about this on the Dynasty Command Center podcast just last week, but he's actually now he's 9th in receiver targets. He just hasn't found the end zone. Like you got to scroll way down the list to find somebody that hasn't found the end zone with the kind of targets that he's had. He's sitting at 58 targets and 0 scores. Absolutely crazy outlier numbers right there. And then, you got, I think Amari Cooper has already kind of gone off. He's going to be hard to buy, but I think I'm valuing him as like a Dynasty top tier wide receiver 1 at this point. And I think that's going to be accentuated down the stretch again this year because of the final few weeks of the season. He faces some decent and easy matchups, especially a couple upcoming again with the Eagles and then the Giants. But down the stretch, he's got the Rams and the Eagles again, and then the Redskins probably after your fantasy championship is over. But his year-end stat line is going to look crazy. So I think his price is going to be even absolutely crazier after this year. If we're talking Dynasty and redraft, it's just like I can't imagine what round he's going to be going next year. But that's somebody that has a decent schedule. And then if somebody has DJ Chark on their roster and is wanting to sell high, I'm okay just investing in whatever they think selling high is right now. Because, if you look at what he's doing right now, it's kind of incredible. You wouldn't have thought coming into the season that DJ Chark was going to be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, but that's what he's become. And he was always a deep threat, but he's adding some layers to his game and having some success with Gardner Minshew. And Jacksonville actually has the easiest schedule for wide receivers down the stretch out of any team. They down the stretch playoff time, when you need to qualify for the playoffs, that they play the Bucks, and then in weeks 15 and 16 they play the Raiders and the Falcons, who are just essentially trying to lose probably at this point. So I'm definitely down for that. But I'm all over. I was not all over Josh Jacobs down pre-draft, but he's got some amazing opportunity as well down the stretch that even though he's already a running back 1, I'm okay just buying all into his price because his role is so clear, and he's got one of the easiest schedules in the NFL, probably top 3 schedule down the stretch this year. He could win you a championship. So I think if you're not already valuing him as a running back 1 in Dynasty and a top 5 or 6 running back down the stretch this year, you probably need to adjust that because that's exactly what he is in fantasy football now. So that I hope that helps with some examples you're looking for.
Yeah. So if you're willing to pay high, so to speak, on DJ Chark, what were you willing to give up?
Like in terms of like rookie picks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people are going to try to sell high and go with like an early second because everyone's so high on the 2020 class. Somebody's going to be if I'm sitting on he's sitting on my roster, I want probably a late first. And I think if I already know if I'm sitting at 7-0 or whatever it is in a like 12 to 14 team league, and I'm okay going at the late first. for Chark. And I think that's probably, if I'm selling him, that's probably what I'm looking to get, because you probably got him for like a late 2, early 3, somewhere in that range in rookie drafts when you originally got him, or you got him off waivers because somebody was just like, this is stupid. And it was, he's never going to do anything after just one season. And maybe you acquired him for free. Regardless, it's going to be a plus, a win for your original investment if you're the owner. So I think you can pry him away for something like a late first, but I would rather kind of have him involved in a deal where he probably costs less than that, kind of piece it together where he's maybe not even the focal point of the deal, but he's somebody that I get added in to manipulate and offset that value and not have to give up my first.
And so say you don't want to pay the DJ Chark price here. What about DD Westbrook?
Yes. So let me just jump in real quick, because last week I pointed out that DD Westbrook had actually had more targets on the season than DJ Chark and said, go out and buy him. And I was saying that last week. I still think the price hasn't quite caught up. And like you said with the Robert Woods, the biggest thing that's missing for DD Westbrook is touchdowns. He hasn't had the touchdown production that DJ Chark has. And so for me, DD Westbrook is absolutely a target. I think he'd come a lot cheaper than Chark would, because he still isn't quite getting the publicity, although a little bit more this week, but still isn't valued, in my opinion, as highly as Chark is. So, and if he's going to lead the team in targets, that's a guy I want.
Yeah, and he's somebody who's had a drastic change to his role. Like Chark has become that field stretching type role where they were trying to make Westbrook that, I think, just a year ago. But if you look at his air yards per target in terms of, for DD Westbrook, he's just around six air yards per target, which is kind of hard to believe considering his game in college and considering what his game was like just a year ago. He's getting like Jarvis Landry air yards right now. And so it's that's probably why he's not seeing, the big touchdown splashes, but he's majorly underperforming in terms of like expected fantasy points anyway. I mean, he's 13th in targets in the league right now. That's insane. I completely agree. He's getting the workload that makes you think, man, this guy should be flex worthy right now. How is he not getting more buzz? So I think he's definitely a buy as well. That's way more affordable. Mm-hmm. But I'm just okay because I was on Chark pre-draft and I liked him a lot, and I'm okay buying him high just because I'm a believer in him long term and his role kind of sticking. But yeah, DD Westbrook is great. Who knew we would have 2 Jags wide receivers to talk about midseason coming into this year?
Well, once I seen who was taking over under center there, that kind of upped the value of every single pass catcher in Duval County there. Gardner Minshew just makes everyone look good. I've said that before on the podcast. He's even made Leonard Fournette viable in fantasy football again. So we have Gardner Minshew to thank for everything.
Future first round pick, Leonard Fournette. He's going to be there in 2020. And I think, it's almost not fair, because I think defensive backs, they teach them to continue to keep their eyes on the quarterback. And he's got the mustache there that it just distracts them. They have a hard time focusing. And it's almost not fair. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a shame, though, that I don't know if you guys watched The Good Place or not, the show, but Jason Mendoza, who is obsessed with Blake Bortles, it's really a shame that this is going to be the final season and they're not going to get to have a Gardner Minshew reference in that show now. It's so sad. But that's way off the deep end, so I apologize.
You know what? He might even still he might even get another Blake Bortles reference in there, because Jared Goff hasn't looked all that great at times too. So Blake Bortles may come back. Just throwing that out there.
Oh man. Oh gosh.
It is the good place.
Probably, yeah, that's true. Oh my gosh.
Now here, team out of nowhere just kind of sent this in here. Anthony Miller, thoughts in Dynasty. Now, coming out of college, coming out of Memphis, this was one of my favorite wide receivers. I loved Anthony Miller. I thought he had a little Steve Smith in him, a little dog in him. I still like Anthony Miller for Dynasty. I just don't like his quarterback right now. And I think that really takes a hit on him right as a wide receiver going forward. He's someone I'm probably holding because I'm not selling him. And I'm probably not going to be able to get much for him right now. So he's a solid hold for me. How do you guys feel?
I'll just So when I do every week I do a box score scouting on Dynasty Vipers, and I go through and look through, and I'm looking for trends, and I focus on the Dynasty part, obviously. So Anthony Miller's the guy that jumps out to me that I keep pretty close eye on, and over his last 2 games, so they were off in week 6, but week 5 and then week 7, 7 targets in week 5, 9 targets this week. Opportunities starting to look like he's starting to get that season high in snaps this week after trending in that direction for the first part of the season as well. Saw the field, 49 snaps. That's the most he's seen it all season. 45 the week before. And then in even against Minnesota, didn't turn in the production, obviously, but also 45 snaps on the field. His receiving numbers have continued to kind of climb up, and he's making a little bit of that progress that you hope to see from a guy at his stage of his career. Allen Robinson is maybe the best, certainly one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, and he's starting to command those kind of targets. But if Anthony Miller can get 7 to 9 targets consistently, like he has the last 2 weeks, now just 2 weeks doesn't make a trend, but if that were to continue, he definitely is going to play a big role down the stretch here.
Yeah, I hope that can stick because overall in the season, his team target share is just over 10%, but not exactly what you want to see on the year. But if it continues growing into that 7 to 9 target range, I mean that's certainly wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2 in fantasy type target load. But to date, I mean he's barely a top 80 in targets, top 80-ish in receptions and receiving yards, and he is another one of those guys where he probably is a buy low just because he's even underperforming given his low target load. He should probably see more fantasy points. He's barely a top wide receiver, like 100 or so in PPR right now, which is crazy. But I loved him coming out. I mean, great story going from a walk-on wide receiver to like 24 touchdowns or so in 2 seasons for Memphis. One of my favorite highlight reels and he wasn't even the guy making the play. He just has such an attitude to him. He's just so competitive. But I think it was against UCF, and Darrell Henderson actually ran in for a score, but Anthony Miller actually flattened a guy on a block. And then as Darrell Henderson is going into the end zone, like he gives a nana boo boo to the whole UCF bench, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's hilarious just looking back at some of the plays that he's just got that edge to him. He's a fun player to root for. So you want to see him and get that 7 to 9 targets a week. But Allen Robinson already being at 60 targets or so on the year, it's hard to project him with much ceiling, but I like him as a flex maybe down the stretch here.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what his target share is just in the last 2 games. I would assume it's a lot more than that because he really, even in the beginning of the season, he just wasn't seeing the field as much. So he clearly he appears to be earning that role, and I love to see that when the young guy like this starts to see it's not like there's an injury in front of him. It's not like there's just something like that came up. We were forced to play him. Seems like he's really earning his time and earning looks.
Yeah, I think if he's ever given much opportunity at all, he's going to be the wide receiver 2 there long term. So I think outlook wise, I'm okay, more than okay, targeting him as a buy low because he's producing, I mean, even less so than like a D.D. Westbrook. So his price is probably severely depressed. So this is the time to buy if you're going to.
So I want to kind of tie in the next segment here with what we're talking about now. We want to get into this 2020 class. I want to hear your thoughts on the 2020 class, maybe some early rankings, a little premature rankings maybe. But if I'm looking to go buy Josh Jacobs right now, and considering what the 2020 class has coming in, because everyone seems to be very high on them. Not only is it a good running back class, but these wide receivers are starting to shape up to be pretty darn good as well. What are you willing to sacrifice as far as picks for, say, Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, I think at this point next year, I mean, there's some pretty juicy options at running back that are going to be coming in. There's maybe 3 other options, but I think Josh Jacobs is kind of the goal when it comes to using your rookie picks and hitting on a player. I mean, it's like when somebody wants to consider even moving like a Saquon Barkley, or a couple of years ago, or maybe just a year ago, trading a Christian McCaffrey, or even now. Those aren't the players that I'm necessarily trying to trade. Those are the cornerstones of my rosters. And so I think if you're going to go acquire Jacobs, it's going to take the implied 1.01 for next year plus something, regardless of how juicy this class looks. It's probably going to be in the multiple early first range if you're trying to pry him away from somebody. And if you're moving off of him, you've got an amazing argument to just get a boatload of picks and a boatload of decent assets in return for his implied future role down the stretch this season and really throughout his entire rookie contract, because he's in a situation where John Gruden really likes him and clearly likes to feed him the ball. Yes, his snap percentage isn't actually incredibly high, but his usage and his touches per snap are crazy numbers. So I would probably prefer him over any of the running backs next year, regardless of how amazing I think that they are. I really love Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift and Travis Etienne. The list goes on, and I'm sure we can kind of break down any of the guys that you would like to, but he's the goal of rookie picks.
So if we're sitting here right now and say Josh Jacobs is in the 2020 class, he's your 101 right now in a PPR 1 QB type setting.
Yeah, absolutely, because he's already hit. I love Jonathan Taylor, who's probably the 1.01 right now for a lot of people, because the only concern was whether he could catch the ball, and he's doing that some this year, and he's on pace for another 2,000 yards or so. He's on pace for like 6,000 yards or whatever in 3 seasons for Wisconsin. So he's an okay prospect, and he's going to test out like crazy as an athlete. He already ran like a 4.42 or something like that in high school. So there's almost no boxes left to check for somebody like Jonathan Taylor. So I think a lot of people are probably moving him up to the top of the board, but I would prefer Josh Jacobs.
I can't wait till the draft process starts to come back and everyone gets high on Taylor here. And then we hear everyone's favorite running back saying he doesn't have how much tread is left on his tires after his college career. Because it's one or the option. You either have college production or you have too much, you've been used too much and there's no more tread left on your tires. We always hear that every year in the draft process. Josh Jacobs was the opposite. He had no tread on his tires, but didn't really have all that college production coming in. So they knocked him for that. Any other college running back who has success all of a sudden has been used too much, right? So
yeah.
In terms, just real quick on Josh Jacobs, before we get too far off of that, in terms of fantasy defenses awarding points to opposing running backs, Josh Jacobs does not have a matchup left where he faces a defense that has in the top 17.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I mentioned earlier, like that's even if you buy high, it's like that's a win. That's definitely a win.
He is going to be a monster for the rest of this rest of the season.
Absolutely. But to the workload thing, I think that there's some just reasonable understanding that, yeah, you probably can't carry the ball 25,000 times and live to talk about it. But being a Tennessee Titans fan, I'm well aware that Derrick Henry was a monster in college. He had, I think, 400 carries or so in his final season. He had almost 1,500 carries in high school. So somebody that has that kind of workload coming in with, thousands of carries already on his back, going into the pros and still having the elite speed, the elite strength, and the stamina that he's shown that he can have. I'm not too worried about it, Jonathan Taylor.
Oh. I'm not hearing the audio. Are you, Travis?
No,
you're not hearing the audio because I had you all on mute. I'm going to do this again. I'll try and match the hand signals up with what we're talking about. But every year, one of my favorite articles that comes out, especially right around the draft, Travis May puts out this fantastic kind of big board breakdown of where players are I'll let you talk about that there, Travis. There, so
like the top 100 rookies type piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I started doing that. I think it was maybe 4 years ago, or 3. I don't know how many years. It's been a bit since I started doing that with Dynasty League football at the time, and I'm going to start doing that again here shortly with RotoViz, kind of coming out with a top 100 rookies for the 2020 class. I've already kind of started on my big board for that. I kind of use my Devy rankings as a guide, but kind of adjust to where I think they'll project after their combine performances, and there's a lot that goes into all that, but it's still early in the process. But I've already formulated, about 120 players I'm looking at to be in that discussion, even adding some defensive guys, because this year I actually added some defensive players in that top 100, just because once you get, I mean, if you leave it just to the the flex, running back, wide receiver, tight end, when you get to 100 post draft, like you're looking at a bunch of undrafted guys. So I really wanted to highlight more defensive players. So expect some more of that. Maybe not as much in the preliminary one this fall, but it's something I really enjoy putting together, and a lot of hours and really years go into that. I mean, looking at these guys from their senior year of high school in some cases to now. So I can't wait to share that on RotoViz here soon.
I love that you're getting that IDP in there, because one of the things I'm a big fan of is IDP football, and I do see IDP fantasy football making that trending in an upward direction there. I'd love to see more and more IDP get out there. Same as how 2QB started coming, how PPR started coming. We almost became the league to get into Superflex, 2QB. When we all started, I don't know about everyone, but when I first started, it was like 1QB standard league. That was about the only thing that was out there way back when. And then all of a sudden you had these radicals come out with 2QB leagues and Superflex leagues and PPR. And now IDP is coming out in the same thing. And I think it's being more and more accepted in the industry, and more people are getting into it. And for me, IDP makes the entire game, the entire fantasy football experience more enjoyable, because now you're watching both sides of the ball and everything. And I think as someone who follows fantasy football and talks fantasy football, being in these IDP leagues helps you understand the entire game a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. And nothing beats watching a Sunday night football game and your wife is screaming at Minkah Fitzpatrick for not getting tackles. He's like, he's right there. Why can't he just get the tackle?
That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, back to the college real quick. Who is the best quarterback in college football right now, and why is it Joe Burrow?
It is not Joe Burrows, but he's been the surprise. I mean, opening the season, I think his odds to win the Heisman preseason, or maybe after week 1 or so, I don't even think he was on the board to begin the season, but 200, I think it was 200 to 1. And now he's risen up the boards, and he's found a few future NFL wide receivers to target on a week-to-week basis. Even just targeting some really depth guys that aren't even hardly making plays week to week. He's throwing the ball to everybody. Making plays in big moments, racking up the score. I was at the Vandy game where they put up 66. Like, it's just embarrassing what he's doing to college defenses right now. So he's a lot of fun to watch. I think he's going to work up. He's already kind of I was a little bit hesitant to put him in the top 10 conversation, but just in the past week or so, I think there's been a couple mock drafts that have put him near the top of the NFL draft boards for next year. My favorite, and I think the best quarterback still, is Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, you hate to see him get injured again with basically the same injury as last year to the other ankle. But I like them both quite a bit. I like Justin Herbert. Those three are going to be the three that are the most coveted and safer picks. But Herbert is definitely not safe. But I'm glad to see he finally got rid of that awkward pre-snap squat, or that mini squat he does. Like right before the snap, it's like, hey guys, I'm snapping the ball. I'm like kind of squatting like an inch or two, hut hike. And it just, if you watched Herbert at all, like before this year, you'll know what I'm talking about. But Tagovailoa and Burrow, it's those two. So I hope Tua is healthy and is right in time for that game, because that's going to be amazing.
So I think right now, like, we got Tua there. I think we got Burrows. I think Herbert. I think that's kind of the consensus top 3 right now.
Yeah.
I have Mr. Love from Utah State there as my number 4. Now, I'm probably higher on him than most people. There's a couple games there. Like, I think LSU was a bad game, but he was making some of the throws you want to see a quarterback make. He's at my number 4, and then I've kind of got Jake Fromm there kind of sneaking into the 5. I'm not very big on this quarterback class after the top 3. Is there some that's you're higher on probably than most people there, Travis, or?
Yeah, I'm not super high on Fromm. I think he can make a lot of the pro throws, and he's not going to light up the stat sheet just because he's not asked to on a week-to-week basis. I think Love was coming into the season. A lot of people liked him. I liked him just because, man, what he did last year. It's like if he improves on that at all, if he puts that to scale, improves and shows that he can win against some tough teams. And put up those same numbers and be that efficient, if not a little bit more. There was a lot to love, but I think he didn't necessarily improve, and so that's hard to see. So that's tough. I probably would prefer Fromm to him, but I think Jalen Hurts is the guy that a lot of people are more excited about now, because I think when he was at Alabama, he just looked like something was wrong when he was facing off against Georgia, when he kind of fell apart and was replaced. I think he was just so scared to turn the ball over playing for Saban. He didn't want to screw that up. I mean, and just to be kind of given a free reign to go, hey man, you want to make plays with your legs? You want to make plays through the air? You want to face easier defenses? Here you go. Win the Heisman. And I think he's just really come into his own this year and has shown how good he can be and how smart he can be and just making perfect decision after perfect decision. Yeah, he's had a couple mistakes as of late, but man, Jalen Hurts is probably the guy that's going to end up being over Fromm and Love and those guys in this class, just because of what he already did at Bama when he wasn't kind of, rattled at all. But then after this season, it's hard to not get excited about what Hurts could be.
Yeah, and I got him right now at my number 6, just behind Fromm and Love. And I think you'd easily argue him as number 4. Like, I'm not going to argue anyone if they have him at number 4, especially based on what he's been doing. I do think his problem at Alabama is he may have been looking over his shoulder at Tua for a good chunk of it. I think when he got to Oklahoma, they're like, you know what, bud? You do you. And Oklahoma has played to his strengths. They've set that offense up to work for Jalen Hurts. I don't think Saban's offense was set up for him to succeed as much as Oklahoma's set up for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's some interesting guys outside of those that are probably like later round flyer type options. Like some people like Sam Ehlinger. He really just throws a good jump ball, but he misses some wide open wide receivers quite often. I mean, you got guys like the next Gardner Minshew with Anthony Gordon for Wazoo already. I think he's pretty sure he's tied or right there with Joe Burrow for touchdowns. Obviously, he throws the ball about 17,000 times per game, but Anthony Gordon's kind of come on and been a pleasant surprise too. Lots of good quarterback play in college football right now. It's good for the game.
How about that guy out of Hawaii?
Cole McDonald. Yeah, I mean, he's got some awesome hair, so that's cool. They run that run and shoot. They line it up 4 wide all day. It's a fun offense to watch. There's no defense at all. They don't really run the ball. But man, he can sling it. If you ask him to hit a deep skinny post out of the slot, man, he's going to nail that 10 times out of 10. So I like his arm, but I'm not sure that a lot of pro scouts are going to like his offensive experience because schematically, he's not going to run anything like he did at Hawaii in the pros.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm not too big on these this quarterback class. I'm sure as we get closer to the draft, I'll get more excited about it. The running back class is about as deep as any right now. Like I'm looking at my list here, and I can go at least 15 guys deep, and I couldn't tell you where they're going to fall right now as far as the draft goes. One of the guys I really, really love, and it's probably because my Canadian is starting to show out here, is Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. Yeah. Now, here's a kid. I don't get the opportunity like most people where I get to actually watch a college football player play high school football. Because you don't see very many high school Canadians get down to the States and play big-time college football. Chuba Hubbard is a guy I actually got a chance to watch up here in Alberta when he played up here. So I do like him a lot. I watched a lot of him. I got him as my number 3 running back right now, behind Taylor and Swift. Kind of funny how I put Taylor and then Swift together, but that's kind of so basically my top
Taylor,
3,
Swift, and Chuba.
So my top 3 rankings basically read like this: Taylor, Swift, Chuba. Okay, that's how it goes.
Yeah, we're gonna leave that right there and not go any further. And then Travis, though. Travis is right after that, right? So I'm even in the picture. Travis Etienne. There we go. So
yeah, I got he's my number 4, and then I got a little bit of a I got Zach Moss sneaking into my top 5.
Ooh.
Now that's probably higher than most people right now, and that's kind of going to go back and forth, I'm sure. Like I said, I got everyone so close together. Like, you can make an arguments for McFarland, you can make arguments for Harris, your boy there, Vaughn. I love Keyshawn Vaughn. I do love a lot of him, and we'll love a lot of his game. Cam Akers, Eno Benjamin, AJ Dillon is another guy that we talk about. We love him for a bit, and then we don't talk about him, and then also we're going to be talking about him again. And then guys like Trey Sermon and Dobbins out of Ohio State are also guys to be considering. And I think that running back ranking system that we're going to see come down the stretch is going to be so fluid, and these names are going to be so interchangeable as we come down the stretch. Who are you liking right now, Travis, there in that running back class, other than everyone?
Other than everyone. Yeah, I am looking forward to just seeing how many of these guys actually do commit. If I was advising any of these guys on, if there was any question as to whether I should go, if there's any type of injury that kind of hampers the perfection of my profile down the stretch, and I'm not a senior, part of me is like, maybe wait another year and you get in the first round. But it's also kind of scary because then you could end up like Bryce Love and completely drop off the face of the planet. But there's going to be a dozen or more guys that kind of grade out and right on the fringe of that day 2 type grade in this class. So, I mean, I'm all over Jonathan Taylor. I like DeAndre Swift and Hubbard and Etienne. I think Akers bounced back some this year. That offense is still imperfect. And so he's still a really good player. So I definitely like him. Been really kind of disappointed in Kylan Hill in the past couple weeks, but outside of the couple week stretch that we've seen here recently, he's somebody that I definitely like and like to root for. Benjamin has been hyper inefficient this year, but that has more to do with Arizona State and their offense being embarrassing than him. He's been fighting through, averaging like 3.5 yards per carry outside of one game. But I still like Benjamin. He's a little bit undersized, and so that's probably going to knock him down into day 3, early day 3. He might squeak in and be that Devin Singletary type player that kind of surprises us with the back end day 2 capital. But I like him quite a bit. AJ Dillon is a guy I'm confused, and I'm curious of your thoughts on him. If you guys know much or have been watching a lot of AJ Dillon. And you're familiar with him. I mean, he's an absolute monster of a man, but he hasn't really been asked to catch the ball that much in his entire career either. Even this year, I think his first year, he didn't even catch a ball. He had like 300 carries and 0 receptions. It's just a strange profile, but there are tons of guys to get excited about this coming year. But what are your thoughts on AJ Dillon?
Oh boy, AJ Dillon for me, like you said, I would love to see his pass catching ability. I would love to see him catch the ball a lot more, because then that would definitely bring him up in my rankings considerably, because he can do anything you ask him. He's definitely a guy who can run between the tackles. He can pass protect. Like, he can be a 3-down back, except we haven't seen him catch. And for me, like you said, that's the biggest knock on him right now. And in today's NFL, you have to be able to catch that ball out of the backfield, or else you're just LeGarrette Blount. And like, AJ Dillon's a guy I want to believe in. I want to put him in my top 5. I think he is a top 5 runner in this draft class. But if you put him together, now he's kind of dropped into that, 10, 11 range for me, because I haven't been able to see that pass catching ability. And you think with Boston College, knowing you have a player like AJ Dillon who's going to get draft capital for you. You'd want to showcase that pass catching ability. I'm sure AJ Dillon's gone to coaches and said, "Hey, throw me the ball. I need to show more." Because that's been the knock on him the last 3 years, is he's not getting those receptions out of the backfield. They're not using him in the passing game.
Yeah, I definitely am still excited about him to see another guy that's big and doesn't catch a ton of passes, but has a few games this year. Is Najee Harris for Alabama. I think he's a lot of fun. Even Brian Robinson Jr., I think he's gonna be drafted and go somewhere just because he played for Alabama and he's a big physical back. So he's gonna go somewhere this year. But tons of guys to get excited about. Keyshawn Vaughn though. This past weekend, putting up like 160, 170 yards from scrimmage and a crucial game. They needed to win badly. I was actually at the game with my grandpa. He's a huge Mizzou fan, and he'd never been to a game. So I took him to see Mizzou get an easy victory, right, against Vanderbilt. And that didn't work out. But it was fun to see Vanderbilt actually get a win, and Keyshawn Vaughn up his draft stock too, because I think he's somebody that could surprise and squeak into day two.
I think more than anything with this running back class, it's not going to be the draft capital, but the landing spot that's going to dictate where you're drafting guys. For example, we got the 10A there. It kind of is that 4 or 5 range for most people, 3 possibly. But all of a sudden, if a 10A was if Kansas City decided they needed a running back because LaShawn McCoy's old, Damian, whatever his name is, was never good to begin with. If they all of a sudden Kansas City drafts Travis Etienne, does he become 101 in this year's draft class?
Well, yeah, it's whoever probably goes there. Yeah, because I mean you're competing with LaShawn McCoy, who will be a Hall of Famer, but he's not. He's on the way out, right? Mm-hmm. And then Damian Williams and Darrell Williams are not the answer. I know a lot of people want Darwin Thompson to get more snaps or whatever, and that's cool. I mean, he was pretty electric at Utah State, pretty crucial part of that offense. He had some good preseason action, but he's not going to be the answer either. So it is all going to be about landing spot. I'm not sure just yet where those landing spots are next year. Like, let's say Derrick Henry doesn't get re-signed by the Titans. That could actually be intriguing just because that could be a boatload of an opportunity if Henry doesn't return for the Titans, because he's actually not been given any extension just yet. So there are tons of opportunities that could open up still for these guys. And I think regardless, there's a bunch of talent that could push a bunch of these older guys out. I mean, anybody under the age of 27, I don't think is safe after next year's draft.
No, we were talking about this a little bit earlier there about that exact same thing. A lot of these running backs, the Justice Hills, these running backs that were drafted in 2019, yeah, okay, they were drafted, but this 2020 class is good enough to push some of the 2019 class off a roster, maybe onto another practice squad. This class is deep. Like it's 15, 16 running backs deep right now, unless some of them come back for another year. Like we talk about Chuba Hubbard here. He's only a sophomore right now.
He's a redshirt sophomore. Yeah, redshirt sophomore, but yeah, so he still has tons of eligibility left. Mm-hmm. He could come back, especially because he's really only had, this will be his only true complete starting year. So there will be a couple surprises, and he would not be one that would completely blow me out of the water if he came back. But if he does what he's on pace for, which is to have like 2,200 yards, 2,400, 2,500 maybe from scrimmage, that's nuts. So he probably won't come back if he has a season like that and he's eligible. But I hope a lot of these guys come out. But I'm not looking forward to 2021 because that does not look like a very fun or deep wide receiver or running back class. But there are tons of. I mean, we're talking about running backs, and we've been talking about them for a long time. But there's a ton of 2020 wide receivers to get excited about as well.
And yeah, we're going to touch on that right now because, in my opinion, in my top 10, and I'm a homer. You got to remember that I'm a homer. It is a very Alabama flavor for me in the top 10. I don't know about you, how you feel, but I got 3 Alabama receivers in my top 10 right now.
No way. The Alabama fan? Come on.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe. I know. I don't usually flaunt it all that much. I got a little bit of red on right now, but is it really? I've got Judy at 1, I got Ruggs at 4, and I've got Devonta Smith there sitting at number 9. Are any of those wrong?
They're not crazy. I think that there are a bunch of guys that if they all commit, I probably wouldn't have Smith in that crew. Ruggs is just going to run everyone else out of the gym, and so he's going to get the draft capital that really is intriguing for him. I think even if he comes in a little bit light, I think he and Devonta Smith could come in a little bit light in terms of weight and like BMI. The people that build that and are concerned with that, probably after seeing the immediate success of Marquise Hollywood Brown, aren't going to be screaming that as loudly. So I could see that happening, them having 3 top 10 wide receivers. But there's a bunch of guys to get excited about. I mean, you got CeeDee Lamb for Oklahoma. I mean, he's had a touchdown in every single game this year. You got Jalen Reagor, who's going to have like a 40-inch vert and run a 4.3 something. He hasn't had a crazy statistical profile for TCU, but somebody's going to take him day 2. And then you got T. Higgins for Clemson. He's that alpha 6'4" monster of a man wide receiver. He doesn't have a perfect production profile either, but he's had some certainly boom games, and he's been in prime time, so everybody knows who he is. And then you've got Tyler Johnson, who, I mean, he has like a 99th percentile production profile, even from his first year. So, I mean, you got a bunch of guys up top, and that's not even mentioning Laviska Shenault, who blew up last year for Colorado. I mean, a lot of people still believe in Brian Edwards for South Carolina. You have a bunch of people coming on strong with like even Isaiah Hodgins for Oregon State is just absolutely dominating this year. And then you've got Justin Jefferson for LSU. Can't leave him out, right? Got to mention him. I got to wait a year on the other LSU guys, but Justin Jefferson's going to surprise. I mean, the list goes on and on. Even like some depth guys like J.D. Spielman, who's got some return ability, Antonio Gandy-Gold, and Colin Johnson, Devin Duvernay. I mean, it's a laundry list of amazingly talented wide receivers eligible for next year.
It's funny you mentioned a couple of those names there: Antonio Gandy, Golden Gandy, Ty Johnson. These are both guys I actually had rated very high last year if they were coming out. Golden Gandy, not so much, but Ty Johnson, a lot of people had him as a top 5 wide receiver if he would have came out last year in this class, right? So this year's class looks like if you want a small, fast receiver, we got small, fast receivers. You want big, prototypical NFL receivers, we got those too. You go up and down. Tylan Wallace is another guy that is going to get some publicity here going.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Sage Surratt there at Wake Forest is another
Heck
guy.
Yes, that's my dude. That's my dude.
He's one of those guys I see he's going to jump up as this draft process goes on. So I'm sitting here with you. We talked about the 2021 class. I'm trying to sell off. I know it's early and stuff, but I'm trying to sell off 2021 picks to get it back into the 2020 draft. As far as fantasy goes, you got any of these wide receivers that are kind of sleepers that no one's talked about? I know I probably burst the bubble or Sage Surratt there a little bit, but
yeah, I mean he can't hardly even be a sleeper anymore with what he's done this year. It's been pretty incredible just to see what he's put together with Wake Forest. I was really high on him coming in last year. I thought that obviously Greg Dortch was there, and I thought Scotty Washington was going to do a little bit more, but Sage Surratt in his first action was kind of more impressive at times than Scotty. And so when Dortch left, I was like, hey, there's going to be a bunch of targets available in this offense if he takes advantage. I mean, he was a stud, a basketball player in high school. I think he actually has the second most points scored for a high school basketball career in North Carolina basketball history. A really smart kid, actually got into Harvard and could have played football there or basketball there, but decided to stay kind of closer to home and go to Wake Forest. And now to see what he's done in just 7 games, having almost 900 receiving yards and 9 scores in his 7 games this season, putting together an incredible season. He's somebody that I could see returning just so he can graduate in a few years. He's already in his 3rd year in college. I don't know where he is in school, but I could see him coming back just to graduate. But I hope he doesn't, selfishly for NFL purposes. I'd love to see Sage Surratt surprise some people with some draft capital and really and just have success immediately as a pro. But if I was going to guess anybody who would return out of the people who could, he would probably be one of them.
Is he one of those guys that you have a lot of Devy shares of that you've secretly been stashing here in the last couple seasons?
You know, I have him in one Devy league. I talk about Devy all the time. I actually cut back a couple leagues, and so I think I only have 5 or 6 Devy leagues or something now. So having one share, that's 16%. But I didn't feel the need to take him in a lot of my other leagues because some of my Devies just aren't super deep. I think I got him, I don't know, around 8 or 9 in a league that was really super depleted already because a lot of people just weren't on Surratt this year. So he was cheap everywhere. Even if you were in like college to Canton leagues that have 600 players rostered, he probably wasn't even on a roster coming into the season. So he was super cheap. And if he does return, he's probably not going to be as cheap, but yeah, he's somebody that I was all over this year, especially for college fantasy. I think I had him in 5 out of 6 leagues in college fantasy this year. So pumped to see his success.
There's that college fantasy again. The leagues that keep giving. So Calvin, just for reference here, I'm like 2 and 5 in this league, but with the 4th most points scored, playing in a division with this guy and Lucas that are like the 2 top scoring rosters in the entire league.
Yeah,
I'm just glad Lucas got beat this week. So I was sick of listening to the trash talk he was throwing out there, left, right, and center on you.
Well, what's funny was he's never actually passed me in the standings. I think I was 7-0 or 6-0 or something. And so I'm 7-1 now. I think I lost like 2 weeks ago, and he was sick. He was like a game behind, but he actually had more points than me. But I just kept on talking trash to him because I was like, look at this scrub, 6-2. What a noob. But it's all in good fun. But that league's been a blast. A couple of my leagues have not gone as well. Losing Derrick King to his own like redshirting himself, that kind of hurt one team. So that's not turned out really well. But I don't know how many of your listeners love college fantasy, so we can move on if you want to do that.
Well, that's one of the things. So we wanted to kind of do the show here a little bit. We wanted to talk a little bit about that trade deadline because the NFL trade line's coming and going. Our fantasy football trade deadlines are coming up. Mm-hmm. And the basic thing is you're either a buyer or a seller at this point. You should have a pretty good idea, unless you're 3-3 and kind of on that bubble, or you know what I mean? You're not quite sure which way your roster is going to go. I've always been a firm believer. If you're in the middle of the pack, you might as well sell and try and build because you're stuck in the middle. You're always going to be stuck in the middle. And you either go out, there's 2 ways to basically improve your team. It's either through the trade deadline and making trades or through the draft. And I wanted to make sure we touch on both of those this week because there are some guys in the NFL that you should be targeting right now, especially and those draft picks you want to get. I think you want to load up on as many second-round picks as you can possibly get right now because I think those second-round picks could be just as valuable as the first-round picks in this year's draft class.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of picks to make. I think especially the early seconds, just because of the depth. Most classes have like one position or the other. They're really heavy on running backs, really heavy on wide receivers, really heavy on one or the other. But I think that with 3 quarterbacks giving you solid options this year, probably a handful of tight ends, and then probably 8+ running backs and wide receivers, pretty safely giving you some value. You're sitting at pick like 18, 19. You're going to be like, oh, this guy's still here? That seems wrong. So yeah, I definitely agree with it, especially early seconds. But I think even in the late second, you're going to be like, wow, how is this happening with who I'm getting right now?
Yeah, and I can see guys like McFarland, Najee Harris, Keyshawn Vaughn sitting there late in the second round in a lot of fantasy drafts this year.
Yeah, I think there's going to be surprises all around. And I think that because of the depth of the position, there's going to be a handful of guys that don't see the capital that we're expecting just because there's so many of them. There's going to be a lot of guys that go later, and some 5th-round backs are intriguing. There's going to be a couple of those guys that kind of sneak up into the mid-second that have that lack the draft capital that you typically see, but maybe have a really solid athletic profile or a really solid receiving profile at at their position. And so that there's still a value, or at least a perceived value throughout draft season.
And I think we talked about him already. I think A.J. Dillon's one of those guys. I think he's one of those guys who's going to probably slide in the draft because he's not being used as a pass catcher. He could go in the 5th, 6th round, unfortunately, because that's just the way the NFL goes. And you might be able to get him late 2nd, maybe early 3rd in your fantasy drafts, and he could be an outstanding bargain for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, comes down to where the landing spot is as well, right?
Yeah.
Now, any of these guys land in Tampa Bay, all of a sudden they're going to jump way up, regardless of who they are, right? So there's certain spots you're sitting there like, okay, Tampa Bay, draft a guy. Kansas City, if you draft a running back, he's probably going to be bump up in value. These are some spots that we're kind of looking on and waiting for someone to come to and perform. That's if this trade deadline doesn't take some players away too and move them around, because this looks like one of the more active NFL trade deadlines we've had in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that NFL teams are done yet. I really hope to see a few more cards shuffled around just to keep it interesting, because it gets, I don't know, the NFL doesn't always have the most exciting trade deadline. I feel like other sports do that a little bit better. But Kenyon Drake is somebody that I have a couple shares of him. I'd love to see him in a better opportunity, more scoring opportunities, more touches perhaps. An offense that actually cares to score points. That would be nice.
I'm going to throw this out to both of you here. Could we see Melvin Gordon traded? And would you like to see him traded?
I would like to see him traded, yes, from a standpoint of having opportunities to perform. Like, I think, number one, if he gets moved, Austin Eckler gets right back into that top running back status that he had before. And then depending on where he goes, obviously, we mentioned Detroit a few times, but if he went somewhere where he had opportunity, Detroit would be particularly interesting because Darrell Bevels, he wants to establish the run if he can. So he'd get plenty of touches there. So, I would love to see it happen. It doesn't, to me, just seem like they're going to actually make that move. But yeah, I'd love to see Melvin Gordon moved.
Yeah, I'm not sure that it's going to happen, but that'd be fun, especially for Eckler owners and for just Eckler to, I mean, his story coming from like Nowheresville University, going to somebody else's pro day and blowing everybody out of the water and being able to get on an NFL team, fight through and be a backup and then be a primary option. And then the guy who was taken in the first round gets sent away so that you can be the feature. That would just be, I mean, that story that somebody's got to make a Netflix documentary real quick on that, just because that's an amazing story if that were to happen. So that would be cool.
Didn't Austin Eckler and Philip Lindsay and there was like another, like a first round running back, all played high school football in Colorado somewhere all at the same time against each other?
I'm not sure. I mean, they played against each other in college because Austin Eckler was playing like Division 47 teams, but yeah, I think they were very similar stories. Like Philip Lindsay's profile for Colorado, I mean, he was really surprising that he didn't get drafted, and go somewhere higher, given the workload he was able to carry. I know he was a little bit skinny for running backs, but he had a ridiculous production profile for a running back, and then to just be completely ignored was kind of strange.
It was Philip Lindsay, Christian McCaffrey, and Austin Eckler that went to high school within about 90 miles of each other in the Denver, Aurora area. They had 122 games combined and had 18,000 total yards and 267 touchdowns. That's
okay. That's decent.
That's a pretty solid threesome there of backs coming out of Colorado at the same time.
Yeah.
Out of the Denver, Aurora area, right? So
right.
I knew it was some crazy thing. It was like three very good running backs, all played high school football at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were talking about Melvin Gordon possibly going to Detroit. As a Kerryon Johnson owner, is that what you really want to see?
No. No. I mean, I like Kerryon and I like his value to stay where it is. But for Kenyon Drake, that would be fun to have some options this year. But Carrion is definitely a talent that I feel like should be given more work than he's already been given. Obviously, he's had some health issues and with his knee and all that, but man, he's definitely a feature back type talent. Even early college career, we should have known that he was a feature back type talent, already catching a bunch of balls early in his career. But Kenyon Drake, I mean, this year as a tradable option, he's intriguing. Just I believe just because looking at his contract right now, he's kind of like just a Band-Aid this year, because regardless of how he gets moved around, his rookie deal is up after the season. So he wouldn't have to be, there more than just down the stretch to replace the production of Carrion. And then if he does succeed in his expanded role for, let's say, the Lions or wherever he does go, he could get a solid second contract and type situation and look like he's a viable starter. And if he's on your roster, he's probably in for a value spike if he's given much of a greater role down the stretch anywhere this year.
Yeah, those coaches certainly know each other, so there could be some communication there as well behind the scenes. I guess the biggest problem is I'm not sure Detroit is going to be a buyer. That might be the biggest problem with these. I think maybe you look more at somebody like Indianapolis. Marlon Mack has had a pretty big load to carry. Maybe they look to fill somebody back in behind him. If the Texans had anything they could trade right now, they might be another team that looks. Other than that, I mean, you look around, there's not a lot of the contenders who have a giant hole at running back right now.
So I got one for you here. He'd be cheap based on his salary cap. His suspension is coming up due. He's playing for the Cleveland Browns. What about Kareem Hunt?
Kareem Hunt, man. His talent looked like it was there when he was on the Chiefs, so that's intriguing. I don't know where I would even want him to be. Definitely not somebody I'm actually going out and buying just because Nick Chubb is the dude. I don't think that Kareem Hunt is going to. I know that preseason some people are like, "Oh yeah, Kareem Hunt's going to be the guy when he comes back," and that's just not going to happen, So. That would be great if he had a change of scenery. For Carrion, I would actually be more concerned long term with a Kareem Hunt than Kenyon Drake if he went to the Lions or another kind of spot. But again, I'm not sure if there'll be a buyer, like you said. But that's just not somebody I'm looking to seek out right now, because I think coming back, a lot of people are thinking, oh, if he's sitting on the roster, they're just waiting for somebody to come sniffing, and they're looking to kind of overprice Kareem Hunt right before he could fail. So I'm not really going out and seeking that just yet. I'll wait and watch Chubb kind of be the guy for a little bit, and then people think, oh yeah, this Kareem guy, and then I'll go try to buy him if I'm a Dynasty owner.
Do you think they could showcase him in the next couple weeks?
I mean, they could probably spell Chubb in a couple spots, but I don't know about showcasing him necessarily.
I know we'll be getting this.
I wouldn't this week. I wouldn't be trying to showcase anyone against the Patriots.
No.
But I know we all got and here's the anti-Patriot in me coming again, because we all know the Tuck rule. It was a fumble.
It's true.
Have the Patriots actually played anyone?
No.
Well, I get what they're doing, and this is the NFL, and every team is good. You know what I mean? They're all good teams, and they're all NFL teams, but they haven't played a top offense yet, and we're crowning these guys as the 85 Bears already. And yeah, they're a good defense, but we haven't seen them play anyone. Like, I'm looking at these games, and there's no one there that I'm like, you know what? They needed to bring their top defense out for this one. I haven't seen it.
It's clearly too soon to crown them that, but I do think we can do a little bit more digging. And I started this the other day. I don't have it here in front of me, but if you look into the teams that they played and how they performed against other defenses, there's a clear there's a clear best defense out of that group, and it's the New England Patriots. I don't know that they're the best defense, since the 85 Bears, like you mentioned, or I'm not, there are people talking about them being the best defense ever. I think that is way too premature. But they're clearly very good, and they've held a lot of really good running backs to almost nothing so far this year. And point taken, we need to see more, but I do think you can look at these teams that they played and who they have played since, and you can still come to the same conclusion that the Patriots have done better against those bad teams than other teams have done.
Yeah, like I said, until they actually play someone, I'm going to kind of hold everything off there. I do think that the Browns could put some points up, but this comes down to Baker. Which Baker are we going to get? Because if it's the Baker we've seen all season so far, we could see another Sam Darnold type game out of a quarterback here. So,
yeah,
and we know Baker thinks he can put it in any window as well. So he's going to try and push it down the field. He's going to try and take those shots. And if Stephon Gilmore is on Odell Beckham Jr., I wouldn't expect much out of Odell Beckham. That's the one Patriot I will give all the props to in the world because, in my opinion, Stephon Gilmore is the top corner in the NFL right now.
The Patriots have allowed one touchdown passing this year, 18 interceptions.
That's okay. That's pretty decent.
That's very Alabama-esque, right? So
the next closest to them is 8. They have 10 more interceptions than the second best intercepting team in the league.
I bet you take the bottom probably 10 teams in the league as far as interceptions go, they still don't equal up to what the Patriots have done.
Yeah.
No, hey? I know you're looking at it right now.
The bottom?
The bottom 10 teams.
Oh, gosh. You're going to make me do math?
Not really. I'm not really into math at this time.
Oh, okay. 1, 2. I got it. They have the exact same amount as the Texans, Lions, Saints, Cowboys, Falcons, Bengals, Dolphins, and Cardinals combined.
So the bottom 8.
Yeah, bottom 8.
That's almost as bad as the Raiders sacks from the years past, where they weren't getting any pressure on any quarterbacks. But they did find themselves a nice little defensive lineman there in Max Crosby in last year's draft. That's been a pleasant surprise for Raider Nation. Can't really complain there. He's been their best defensive lineman so far to date. Another one of those small school kids out of, oh boy, now I got to try and figure this out. Was it Eastern Michigan?
I have no idea.
And let's be honest, I'm too lazy to look it up right now. So
all I know is I'm pretty sure they beat Purdue last year. So maybe it was because of him.
Well, that's not saying a whole lot last year with Purdue's.
Hey, no, you got it.
Although I will say Purdue has probably the top tight end in the nation right now, as far as the draft goes in 2020.
Bryson Hopkins is good. Yeah.
And in 2021, they have a pretty good wide receiver that could possibly be coming out too.
Yeah, Rondale's. I think he's okay.
Yeah, he'll be all right. He might be able to make a name for himself there.
Yeah,
right?
2,200 all-purpose yards as a true freshman. Is that good? I don't know.
Travis, I got a question for you as a Titans fan. Obviously, you made the comment earlier about the quarterback and getting all the blame. So they make a change this past week to Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill comes in, and on the season, Ryan Tannehill is actually completing 80% of his passes, which seems insane. But he seemed to add some value to Corey Davis and to A.J. Brown. Now, in your opinion, does that tell us more about the Texans? Or no, it wasn't. What wasn't? Does it tell us more
Chargers?
About the Chargers have in the secondary right now, or is that you think he actually could produce that kind of value for those guys?
I think it's a little bit of both, but and I think Mariota is just needs to go to another team. Sadly, I mean the Titans. just organizationally, it's been a pretty infuriating set of a decade-ish or so, just watching them ruin quarterback after quarterback and just skill player after skill player, just absolutely just throwing all of their wide receivers in a dumpster and lighting on fire for the past 10 years. And it's just really, really frustrating. The changes of the offensive coordinator year after year after year, regardless of whatever offensive success that they've had. And then Mariota and his injury, and then not having a full off season, and then coming back with a new offensive system, and then now he's got a new offensive coordinator again. It's just like, man, they've just messed him up in every possible way that they possibly can. He just needs to go get a fresh start somewhere, and I wish him the best. But he's not going to be re-signed, and Tannehill is probably not the long-term option. He's not going to complete 80% of his passes, but I think this year he could make and he could make AJ Brown and Corey Davis flex worthy down the stretch this year.
So here's a trade offer for you. Who says no? Jameis Winston for Marcus Mariota.
I don't want Jameis Winston, man.
Oh.
I don't want like 5 picks. It's like it's really hard to win games. Like, I don't care if you've got 400 yards if you also have 5 picks. I don't care. Like, and he's doing that with elite options in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, like elite top 10 wide receivers. Like Corey Davis and AJ Brown are good, but they're not definitive top 10 options in the league. Jameis Winston has had weapons his whole career and has failed spectacularly consistently to win games. So I don't really want Jameis. I want a fresh start for Marcus if I had the choice between the two of those guys.
As a Titan fan, I can certainly see why you would say that. As a Corey Davis and AJ Brown believer, that would be amazing, because Jameis Winston is he's the best kind of bad quarterback, because he just slings the ball, and so he's going to give him a lot of opportunity. They're going to come down with sometimes the other team's going to come down with him. But yeah, I think in vice versa, that would really put a cap on maybe what you would get out of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin if Mariota was there. So interesting exercise to see. Was it Tampa Bay that chose Winston first? Yeah, if Tampa Bay had chosen Mariota, how things would have gone.
Mariota would have killed whatever Jameis Winston has done by a lot. I think, and that's probably not very close. And he's not an idiot when it comes to off the field and eating a W off of his fingers.
Oh my God!
Like, what the heck? Like what just a strange head case, and like all the crab legs and all that nonsense. Like, dude.
Yeah.
What? So, sorry. It's just, Mariota, I wish him the best, but he's not the answer here. And it's probably not really all his fault either. Tannehill's not either. So I don't know. I guess it's fun that they're doing something. They're going to go 9-7 again and miss out on the playoffs in the last week. That's what we do here in Tennessee. So.
Well, are they going to miss out on the top quarterbacks too? I think that's
and that's the worst part. I think you're going to miss out on all 3 of the top quarterbacks, and you're going to be stuck in no man's land having Tannehill at your quarterback again next year, go 9-7 again for the 5th year straight, and then you let him walk, and then you don't have another quarterback option again, and then the Titans are going to be bad for 3 years, and then they'll get the 2024 quarterback one, and then maybe not ruin him, hopefully. And by the time my kids are in high school, then they'll actually maybe be good enough to make the playoffs again.
Are we thinking that Tua, Burrows, and Herbert all go top 10?
Top probably 15, yeah. Especially just because of the premium of the position these days. Guys that don't even belong in that conversation. Guys that basically have one collegiate season, like Dwayne Haskins, they're going in the top half of the first round these days. So guys like Herbert, Burrow, and Tua probably all go. All 3 go top 15. Tua and Burrow probably go top 5 at this point.
Because there's some really bad teams that need quarterbacks in a bad way. The Dolphins will be up there for sure. The Bengals will be looking at probably a quarterback, I'm going to guess, and move on from Andy Dalton. Your Titans will be probably looking for a quarterback if they get a chance, but they're 3-4 right now, so they're probably putting themselves out of that conversation. Trying to look here. Could the Falcons possibly move on from Matt Ryan?
No, I mean no. He's not the problem. They don't have a defense at all.
Well, we talked about this last week here. The Falcons' biggest issue is Dan Quinn brought the Seattle Seahawks defense over there and didn't change anything when the other teams did.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't make those adjustments. A lot of teams have ran that Seahawks type defense and then made adjustments off of it. I don't think he's ever adjusted his defense since New England exposed him in the second half of some big game.
And they've lost a lot of key pieces to the defense due to injury from time to time. And you missed out on Keanu Neal for like a season and a half, and Deion Jones has missed time, and other players just haven't panned out to be what they thought they would be. So yeah, it's just things haven't worked out defensively, but it's not Matt Ryan's fault.
Yeah, definitely not. Tampa Bay is another one that will probably be with a pretty high draft pick looking for a quarterback, and maybe we get a chance to see Drew Lock this year, but certainly Denver could be in that mix for looking for a quarterback too.
All right, Travis, we're gonna start wrapping up here pretty quick. But 2020 draft, you're on the clock here right now as an NFL team. Who is the first overall pick? So chances are you're looking at Miami or Cincinnati.
Tua Tagovailoa.
That's your number one overall pick.
That is the number one overall pick. I am sprinting to the podium to smash the metaphorical buzzer and yell loudly that I want Tua Tagovailoa as my franchise quarterback.
But he's left-handed, Travis.
So am I. So we have a bond. Leave me alone.
So if you're Miami and you've got that number one overall pick, and I'm kind of going down here in the early draft order, Miami's probably going to end up with 2 top 10 picks here. That's probably how it's going to shake out. Do you think they take a quarterback with that second pick and maybe take a certain defensive lineman out of Ohio State with that first pick overall?
No, probably not.
No.
I think they just get their guy at quarterback and not leave it to chance that somebody not only that somebody takes him before him, but maybe even trades up ahead of them. I mean, it would take less capital to do so, and so I think that they would probably get their guy.
All right, that's where you have it there. So, Travis, we're just going to wrap it up here. The floor is all yours, man.
Well, I just appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's been a blast. It's cool just coming on and chatting college football and NFL draft stuff. That's one of my favorite things to do. If you like talking football, you can find me on Twitter at @FF_Travis M. A lot of my NFL draft stuff and college football stuff has been with RotoViz this year. So you can find all that there. Definitely check out the Dynasty Command Center podcast with me and Curtis Patrick every week, sometimes twice a week here and there. So always fun doing the show with him. But yeah, look forward to joining you guys again in the future. But thanks again for having me.
And one of the things that we tell everyone here is it's an open invitation. Anytime you want to jump on, you just let me know. We'll get an invite sent over to you. If you just want to make a quick little appearance, say hi, and then stick around. If you want to jump on the show, we're pretty easy going over here. So the invitation is always open for you. Like I said, and talking college football is one of the funnest things to do because it is kind of when football's at its purest. You know what I mean? So I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I think I enjoy it more than these college fantasy leagues that we get ourselves into. But,
if you had more wins.
I'd be up there gloating with everyone. I'd be taking screenshots of my record and posting it on there and make sure I edit everyone else out of the standings there.
That's exactly what I do. I just don't look at my points for.
Yeah, just make sure you kind of take that right out of there altogether.
Yeah.
But no, I think we talked about that league that we got going on there, the All Matt League there. What a good group of guys that are sitting there right now. Even Lucas,
Even Lucas.
I might have to take a little screenshot of this little clip and send it to that league here just for shits and giggles.
Yes, absolutely. Even Lucas, just put like that right next to my head. Like Lucas doesn't suck. Yeah, yeah.
But he's still in second place.
Yeah, actually, he totally does suck, but that's okay.
Hey, there can only be one. We're going full.
There can only be one. And right now, it's me. So Lucas, bring it, man. If you're listening, 2 hours into the podcast here, just for your shout out.
I just can't wait till I come back from the depths of despair at 2-5 and I pass Lucas in the standings.
It's going to happen.
Be the greatest story of all time.
It's going to happen. You got to win out, though. You got to pretty much win out.
I can't see that happening right now. I think I lost too much. And the worst part is I was getting like everyone's best game, like right off the get-go. Guys who haven't scored over 200 points were all of a sudden scoring like 260 points against me. It was ridiculous.
It's about right.
Yeah. I couldn't believe even Pokemon Go there scored 250 points as high as out. And I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah.
But that's how fantasy works, right?
Yeah. Shout out to Dwight there with his team.
Yeah. I was going to say Matt, but I figured there's only about 6 of us. So there's about 6 that aren't Matts in that league. So
yeah.
All right. So for Travis May and earlier on, we had Marcus Grant on the show for Calvin and Hobby. I'm Matt Donnelly. And Calvin, you got anything else to say before I close it out?
No. Go buy Jets.
Go buy Jets. And this is episode 9, I believe, of the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. And we gone.